To begin with, we have to ask a question. Like, why are supposedly scientific people so sure that phenomena like telepathy, maybe even telekinesis, I don't know about that one, reincarnation, souls, instant communication. I mean, that we literally have evidence, scientific experiments of two particles that interacted, separating, and then being able to simultaneously move, uh, indicating action at a distance, something that was a bugaboo for Einstein, of course. Yet, dismissing those things just because we haven't proven them, but absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. We may just not have been doing it the right way. It's also silly because we have a standard theory, which is very, very good, that's been proved by the Hadron Collider, showing us gravitons are very, very likely, almost certain to exist. Gravitational waves are a thing. Standard model within its specific purview, within its guidelines, whatever you want to call it, laws, is accurate. And we have the same with quantum mechanics and general relativity. But they don't all match. So either the universe is just has different rules at different sizes, or there's one equation that ties them all together that we have yet to find. I personally think the latter, and a lot of physicists and mathematicians think the latter, because it just seems to be the way the universe goes. That physical laws should be, or tend to be, if we discover them, these inalienable things, these things that work in perfect clockwork everywhere in the universe. So why would there be different equations for different scales of things? Equations that don't fit together, equations that tell a very different story of the universe. So there's that. So how can we be so sure of science? Well, not sure of science, sure that science has described everything when we know it hasn't, because the things it's described are very accurate, but they don't fit with each other. So the other thing we come to is the problem of, or not the problem, the mystery of what happened in the first 10 to the negative 42 seconds after the Big Bang. Some have talked about the Big Bang as starting as a singularity. We'll talk about infinity and nothingness in a second. But as far as what physicists know, in that first period of time, we just don't know. Physical laws, whatever, we'd have no idea. It's a complete mystery. And that's the genesis of our existence, and we don't have any idea what it is. And it's not like that's a short amount of time at that scale. We're talking about nanoseconds, the entire basically universe being expanded to almost the size it is now. So we're talking about a lot can happen in that amount of time, especially when we don't even know what that amount of time means, because we don't know what the physical laws were. So how can we sit here and be like, well, then we can just discount all this other stuff because we haven't proven it, because we have something figured out, when we haven't figured it out at all. And especially, so before I go on to consciousness, I'll bring back infinity. Infinities appear all through physics, and so does zero, but there's no such thing as infinity. You can have something that is potentially infinite, but the thing is, you'll still keep going and going and going, and no matter how much you get, there'll always be more to go. That's the nature of infinity. It's not actually a number that can be reached. It's a concept. And the different ways that can be go, there are different types of infinity that aren't actual things in the universe. It's like a perfect circle. You'll never find a perfect circle in the universe. But as a mathematical ideal, it's very useful. Same with zero. Zero is basically 1 over infinity. The idea of something being so infinitesimally small. So this idea of a singularity as something that could possibly exist in the universe inside of a black hole or the beginning of the Big Bang is just hand wavy. It's not real science. It doesn't make any sense. These are mathematical idealizations. They're not actual things that make sense to live in the physical, to exist in the physical universe. So, that all being said, the greatest mystery of all, the origin of consciousness. Now, there's is it from the brain? Is it just a evolutionary or an emergent property of neural cognition within the biological context? Probably not. It doesn't make sense to me. How can you? It's like you take away parts, and then at what point is it not a conscious thing? I mean, we know of regions of the brain that have to be interconnected, or a person goes into unconsciousness. We It's studies of people under anesthetic for surgery, and we see that what it is not those those brain regions not being active, but being disconnected from each other. But just because you can say and look at the brain and say, oh, well, this is consciousness and this is what not consciousness looks like, doesn't mean you've proven that the brain is the source of consciousness. It's like a correlation does not necessarily equal causation. So what is consciousness? Well, the parapsychic view is a very interesting one. If the whole universe is conscious, then it must be quantized, it must be finite, it must be a physical thing. The idea of a supernatural thing is ridiculous. Natural means within the universe, hence everything that is natural is within the universe. As telepathy exists, it is not a supernatural phenomenon. It is a natural phenomenon, because every phenomenon is a natural phenomenon, because we're in nature. It's nature. It's naturally nature, nature. Blah, blah, blah. You get what I'm saying? So, why not the source of consciousness be some sort of physical entity that somehow interfaces with our nervous system, which then interfaces with our body, like you could call the soul, the spirit, the body, the body and the nervous system, like the mind that is processing. And these things can all interact, and that to me seems like a very likely condition for how consciousness makes sense to exist, because it would just be an inherent part of how the universe operates as opposed to an emergent property that appears somehow, someone, I don't know, chicken the egg sort of paradox that you're getting into. It's a whole pile of worms. And so is, general relativity. They get these infinities, they try to sweep them under the rug. Quantum mechanics, they got an infinity, and then Max Planck realized, okay, we have the black body problem, the black body disaster, where if it's continuous, if the light spectrum is continuous, then things should just get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, infinite. And they realize, well, that's not what happened. So then they realize it's quantized. And that's basically where we are with consciousness, and where we are with a lot of physics, where we have these infinities and these paradoxes and things haven't been discovered. So this very conceited idea that I don't think most actual very good scientists subscribe to. I think it's mostly like internet warriors who just are like, I believe in science, you are an atheist, you are religious, you are dumb, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's not what an actual scientist would probably do with their time. So I think it's just a misconception. And one reason why scientists don't say stuff like telepathy is possible is because they're just afraid of being seen foolish. Because people, when you say that sort of thing, it's like you get eye rolls. So it's just a natural social thing. And also because we haven't really seen evidence of it, because we haven't known where to look. People want to talk about a spirit world. What about dark matter? It's basically not electromagnetically interacting with our material world that we see, but it is gravitationally reacting with it, which is how we can tell it is, because it's literally bending light of suns from distance, and that's how we can tell where it is. So this dark matter world could be like another world completely, like with planets and like people that are dark matter people who can't see us and we can't see them. And then there's dark energy, which is this like mystical, almost physics, like I gotta finish the equation before I gotta turn it in, basically, like it was energy. And if you look at what the universe is, there's no such thing as nothingness. Standard models shown that the universe, in credit Feynman, that cool British guy, it's like everything is actually, there's no empty space in an atom. Every piece of Planck space, because it's quantized, space is quantized as well, the Planck length. Every piece of the universe, has that property. Oh my God, I lost what I was saying. But I've talked for a while, so there's a lot more I can say, but I'm not going to say it unless people, respond to this sort of thing. If they don't, then I'll just try another tact. So let me try to sum up and conclude. I don't have definitive evidence for any of the things I'm surmising about, and I'm not saying they definitely are true, because that would be a scientific, irrational thing to say, and I'm a scientific, skeptical, and I like to think rational person. So that to me seems like a ridiculous thing, but if skeptics actually want to start challenging these arguments and then realizing maybe there's something to them, or maybe half of it might have something to do. Maybe we could actually have people who are researchers. I mean, I've starting a corporation. I'm getting my degree. I'm doing YouTube and other things. I'm not really a scientist, but maybe a conversation can be had that can lead to actual research, because there is reason to think that we could look for a soul. There is reason to think that there could be instantaneous communication through gravitons and gravity waves. And what if we're all the spins at the very beginning of the universe were all connected and entwined, and that as the universe spreads and gets faster and faster, we don't become totally separate from each other because we were always at the beginning one. And that sounds like spiritual nonsense. But I'm just trying to say, have a little humility, have an open mind. If you call yourself a scientific person, those are two key attributes.